Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the VVA podcast. My name is Layla Oresme.
And I'm Christina, Tumino.
And this is the episode number 0 entitled Conceptions of the Fool. And because this is our new adventure that we are starting, we thought we wanted to start with episode 0. And also because today is the April Fool's Day, we thought it would be appropriate to talk about the idea of conceptions and 0 and what happened before the beginning.
Yes, actually, just before. I actually did a little research about April Fools, just to understand why is it called that way, because I don't know if you know.
I don't actually know, no.
Yeah. So I went to check, and there's so many speculations around this. I found this one interesting. They said in France, at some point in history, maybe 1800s or something like that, they switched from the Gregorian calendar, where the calendar year starts on the 1st of January, they switched it to the Julian calendar that starts on the equinox of spring, that more or less is on the 1st of April.
Right.
So the people that they were a bit slow in getting this new
information.
And information, they starting to be the center of jokes. So in France, they call it actually Poisson d'Avril. And actually it's the same in Italian, we say Pesce d'Aprile. And they used to put this paper with a fish at the back, drawn at the fish at the back, to say they'll be like fools, because they still think the first of the year is the 1st of January rather than the 1st of April. And he said, here I was reading, that the fish, the reason why they put the fish is symbolizing a young, easily caught fish and a gullible person. So and they do these kind of jokes, putting things at the back. So that's what it comes from. They think it comes
from. So it is kind of like, like the Joker and the tarot card Fool, which basically represents kind of like new hope, new beginnings, but also can be very naive in a way. So there's always like kind of like two sides to this, isn't there? We have the kind of risk taking and almost like not knowing how little we know in a way about certain things. And I think it kind of applies to us, how we're starting this podcast. We don't really know how to do this, so we're just kind of jumping into deep waters like the fish. And we're just kind of winging it, really. But
I was actually reading about Jordan Peterson's book that I believe you have too. The Beyond Order, that he mentioned the card of the Fool.
He did. There's like a really beautiful illustration.
Yes, and he talks about the why did he choose this card, and the symbolizing the kind of when you are beginning something, you are at the very beginning. Although I understand this is even before the beginning, because it's the conception of an idea. And he was saying, and I found it quite interesting, that two things are very important. One is to have gratitude things, and see like what, be aware of what you already have, and look at this as a new opportunity to grow as well, but as well to be humble, because when you know that you know nothing, that's when you are open to learn. And when you're open to learn, you become the apprentice to then become a master.
I was actually thinking, before we kind of begin anything, we almost have to be comfortable with the idea of not knowing anything. It's kind of like we don't know how much we're going to encounter on the new path, and we have to be, like you say, humble, because if we're too cocky about whatever we're doing, it's we're missing out on a lot of very important information. and can make a lot of mistakes because we're newbies, you know. It's like we're children in a sense, and there has to be a kind of balance between being brave but also humble, and knowing that we don't know pretty much anything, and actually realizing how much we don't know.
Yes, I think actually that what a big pressure we can get is from people around us, because I think when we are in that area of conceiving something and creating something, then you have to deal in some way with the people around you. And normally new ideas are, because they are new, and people not normally don't receive them and perceive them sometimes in a good way, or they can be quite controversial maybe. So then you have to deal with the pressure as well from people that are there, like kind of pushing against in some way, against your idea. So I think that's where it comes as well, the idea of the fool, in terms of being considered by others as a fool.
As a fool, yeah, exactly. And yeah, you have to be comfortable with that and realize that not everyone is going to understand where you're coming from, because if the concept you're dealing with is so fresh, then you're not going to have necessarily anyone around you that will be able to relate to what you're doing and what your vision is. And I guess, you know, even our podcast, Fast Visions Association, it's all about looking far into, you know, the future maybe, and also the past, and kind of just like bringing those concepts together. And I guess, you know, every time we do things like that, there has to be a point where we're kind of brave enough within ourselves to know that we can start something new. We can, you know, just venture into the unknown.
Yes. And I think I was thinking again of the idea of the influence of people around you, because I think when, I don't know if you had this experience in the past, but when you are starting something that is completely different and new, you channel into that kind of vision or idea, and then you have to transform it, materialize it, right? And then you have to face in some way people around you. And it's not just about the pressure they can put on, like, I don't like it, I don't want it, but as well the fact that you might interfere with the idea and change it and adapt it to what people might want or people might like.
Yeah.
And maybe that's actually not a good idea, because in some ways, for fear of being rejected or not liked. And I think that's so important, instead, to be, in that sense, have the courage, when you were talking about, to say, no, that's the way I feel it. And maybe you will not like it. Maybe even 80% of the people will not like it. But I have to do how I feel it, that is to be right. That's where you have to have the courage to persist and carry on. And then the people that will resonate with the idea, or they will like it, they will come eventually, and maybe things will change, not necessarily for everyone, but that's where is important to in that sense, to have the courage, I think.
And also I like what you say about, you know, the kind of, when you're like channeling the idea, you're channeling the concept, it's so pure in itself. And I think this is what the fool represents. It's just that very kind of pure innocence and this kind of pure idea and insight. And then when it comes down, it can often get tainted by, like you say, the person who is trying to, I guess, do the actual thing. And with the fear of how it might be perceived, it might get tainted in the process. But I think it's important to, you know, I think sometimes there has to be some adaptations made, but I think it's really important to try and keep it as pure as possible in order to really do it justice. And I think you know, only the bravest people can do it all the way.
Yeah, and if you think, because I know that you are of this idea too, we are all unique. We're all different in any single aspect. Every physically, the way we feel, the way we think, the way we know is unique. So my idea is that when we kind of channel into this vision or idea or whatever it is, it's like it kind of transform a bit because of our personality, our uniqueness, and then as again we like give birth, and then
it becomes, we're like a filter for it.
Yeah, it becomes real, but becomes real according to how we perceive it, and we change it in some way. And I think what it makes it special and beautiful is the fact that we, with our experiences and everything we are, we make it in that way. And I think that is important as well, especially because nowadays people talk a lot about uniqueness. People talk like, oh yes, we're unique. But in reality, I have the feeling that like we shouldn't make an effort to be unique. Like people say, oh, you are special, like you need to be, you need to try to differentiate from others. We don't have to try to differentiate. We are already different. So we don't have to make an effort to be different. And that's the fact when, for instance, we're not even able to create something new because, no, I'm not saying we're not, but it becomes harder and harder to find people that have the courage and they can bring forward something new and different and fresh and creative. And it's simply because you just need to channel, be yourself, don't be scared, just scared, I think, in that right amount, scared enough to be
humbled, like you said in the beginning.
Yes, humble, open for learning, be that good apprentice, and of course to be as well in some way to protect you in some way, because it's like you're in a forest and you go there and you're like, oh my God, I need to get there.
So you can't be naive going there thinking everything is safe, because this is the point in life that we have to actually learn how to navigate through it, because it's not all safe, it's not all easy. And if we are naive thinking that, you know, we're living in some utopia, then we're not being realistic at all, and that can bring a lot of damage onto ourselves.
Yes, so, naive as well in the fact, I think, naive in the fact of thinking that because you are starting now and you have this courage to do things, you will be it will be kind of easy. Like, yeah, it will be hard, but in your head you think, no, it's okay, it's going, I will do this and I will be amazing and I will do
like I'm just gonna go with the flow, and like
in reality there is lots of hard work. I think that's what makes it special as well. There's lots of failures and hard work, and it's like when you're starting from being a waitress in a waitress in a restaurant, and you start to clean the tables and everything, and you start from the bottom, and then in order to get where you need to get, you are growing up into that kind of
exactly.
And
it's never easy, it's never comfortable. I mean, even today with us starting this podcast, there was so much technical issues, and
I know.
So I think we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially in those beginnings, because it's almost like a time before anything has actually begun, and that can sometimes be really paralyzing, to the point where a lot of people might not even actually start with anything, because they might just have the idea, but because of that fear of being at ground zero almost, they don't have enough courage and enough hope to actually start realizing and move on to the next level, which is the actual beginning.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, of course, I get into the parenting side. There is a lot of idea of protecting from everything. Like the more you are in a zone that you know how it works and what is going on and how to move, and the more you are protected, the more actually I think you lose the skills to face the unknown. And I think that actually is a problem, because that means, and I think in some way this is what characterize what they call this how do they call it, the snowflake generation.
Yeah.
They say that for anything they just melt like a snowflake. The interesting enough, a snowflake is unique, every single one, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I always found that concept a bit confusing, because they're not acting like the actual snowflakes in a way, right? It's a bit of a contradiction, but I totally agree. I think if we're always protecting ourselves from anything going wrong, we will never learn, because the only way to learn really is through experience, and we have to be able to willing to make mistakes and willing to fail and be hurt. And if we don't do that, then we will just never learn. So we're always gonna be at that 0 point, you know. And so it's something that we're actually afraid of, that keeps us stuck in that same place.
You know, last time, well, not last time, not too long ago, I was having a bit of sun, you know, like enjoying the sun outside in the garden. And then for some 1 minute, I was looking at the grass. I don't know if you ever had this thing. I was looking at the grass and I was looking, oh, what's going on there? Like, what kind of world is in there? So I was looking into the grass. And then I saw, you know, like, I don't know, ants walking.
Little bugs,
bugs and stuff. And I was thinking, oh, look, if we actually were in a jungle, although we, of course, we need to have some kind of certainty in life. It cannot be all completely like unknown. You have to have something uncertain. But in reality, we made so much certainty around us that everything that needs to be kind of quite predictable. And I was thinking, animals, although they have their own area and stuff, they actually live in a very unpredictable life, because they never know what can happen if another, I don't know, animal from outside can come in and then just destroy everything they have done. And they, in some way, I believe they know this, and they just live in this way. They know that they just need to be careful, but they have to face this unknown thing. And I think we're less and less ready to this. Like, it's kind of, we are raising generations and children to not taking risks, even like climbing trees and stuff. Now, like, who goes and climb trees and then maybe fall and then down and then you like, why not? Why not go in and do
that's part of living, right? Sometimes you have to fall and hurt yourself. Hopefully, obviously not too bad. But you know, that's what makes you learn.
That's the way that you learn how to assess risks. Only when you are facing risk and you are trained all the time is when you assess risk. Like, for instance, I work with children as well in a nursery, and we use, as a Montessori nursery, we use all the things that we use are made of glass. So we have glasses of glass, jugs of glass, everything is glass. And I work with 3 years old children. And many parents are like, oh, glass. And the point is that if you teach your child very young age, around 3, and start to teach that, you know, you need to be careful, because, you know, if he falls on the floor, you can break it. And if you break it, you can cut yourself. So you need to understand where to put the glass when you're staying on the table. Just don't leave it like on the edge and then maybe you do that and then it falls and breaks. Or how to hold it in a safe way. So the more you kind of give that opportunity to the child to assess the risks and understand, oh, how I need to use it, how do I do it, the more they learn how to handle it.
Exactly.
That's the point, that we need to become, to train ourselves to take risks. And we do that since we are very young, and not just with like risk, it can be even physical risks, not just.
I mean, because the idea of security is so false, Because the truth is that no matter how much we want to protect ourselves, we will always have to face some kind of adversary. And, you know, the later we learn, the worse. You know, it's better to learn early and learn those tougher lessons when we're younger, because then that sets us in a good place for further learning further down the line in our life. And I think it's just really important not to avoid any lessons, because they are going to come anyway, and sometimes they will just pile up to such a degree that it's going to be so hard to actually learn it. Especially, you know, I mean, I see many adults who are older than me, and they're struggling to implement certain lessons in their lives, and it might be something that I've learned as a child. And I'm sure it's like that for everyone to some regard, because we always learn about different things.
We all have something to
part of our life.
It's just maybe what is easy for me can be difficult for you.
Yeah.
But my lesson is maybe it's because it's my lesson. It's my
yeah, exactly. But I think it's always, the more we avoid lessons, the bigger they get and the more obvious they get. And we don't really want to get to a point in life where they have accumulated so much and they've grown into like these monsters, you know. And it's like, I think going back to the, you know, the tarot card of the Fool, you know, he's walking on the cliff edge, and you don't really want to fall from a high like this, because it's going to hurt. So sometimes it's better to just climb some trees and fall from the tree because it's not going to be the same as falling down from a cliff. So I think it's better to take each smaller lessons as life kind of throws them at us, instead of running away from them in the hope that we will live this extra secure and comfy life, because this isn't what life is about. It is about taking risks and learning
and growing, because it's when you learn that you can grow, and when you grow, then you're ready again for a new lesson, and life becomes, I think, less miserable. It becomes more inspiring and becomes more like open. And
yeah, I mean, life is just so exciting when you're open to learning, and you know that no matter what happens, even if it's something quite terrible, you know it's going to make you into a more stronger and more resilient person. And that makes it more, I mean, it just makes it so that we can actually deal with those things, because if we see it in that way and see that this is actually something to make us better, then it stops being so awful, you know, and we can deal with it in a much more resilient way and have more enthusiasm for life, because every difficult thing actually brings something more fulfilling towards us.
It's like, it makes me think of children. We are born, all of us, we are born in that way. Like, children are not scared of taking risks. They want to climb, and they don't even know what's going to happen. Yeah, and in some way they are naive, because they don't really know what can happen if you fall from that height. But that's that kind of will and enthusiasm and spirit to, you know, to push you to learn, to grow. That is what make them be like so open to everything and
so joyful. I mean, kids always just, they look so happy, because partly because they're not aware of what might happen to them, you know.
And they open.
Yeah, as we kind of age, you know, things might kind of wear us out a little bit, but they won't, as long as we try to keep this kind of mindset of a child and realize that the learning never stops, and we will always learn throughout life. And as long as we have that mindset, that childlike mindset, in a way, that innocent, and I guess naive is more like the negative aspect of it, but just not so fearful of everything. I feel like there's just so much fear all around us, and it's completely paralyzing. And sometimes we just have to act a little bit childish, you know, and just embrace the new things and new opportunities.
Maybe more than childish, I would say, as a child, in terms of again, being open and bold and wanted to take, actually they look for challenges, they look for risks, they actually want to go and do the most dangerous stuff, and they are humble enough that whatever you tell them and you teach them, they, like if they're learning how to talk and you just kind of correct them in a certain way, they're open and to say, oh, okay, that's the way I have to say it, and they're ready and they're persistent, and they try and try and try. They're learning how to ride a bike. Oh my goodness, they will do it so much that until they get it, and they can be proud of riding that bike. So yeah, I think it's more like the approach of a child in terms of that naivety of not really knowing what's going to happen because they don't really understand how things work. But with that thing of wanting to go again, like go and look for the challenge, like they really go for the challenge.
That willingness, that willingness to experience and learn. And I think there's a flip side to it as well, where people can actually be really immature in life and very blind to reality. And that's like the darker aspect of what we're talking about, which is on the opposite side of the spectrum, where we're just in so much denial about the world and we believe it to be just this thing that it isn't, and we find it hard to accept certain truths, and we just live in this denial, and that can be very damaging as well. For example, I mean, just the kind of immaturity and not willing to take on a responsibility that comes with learning certain lessons, and it's like repeating the same mistakes over and over again because the first lesson didn't kind of get learned, I guess. So you just keep learning the same lesson over and over again, and that's kind of how you become the negative side of the fool, when you really are a fool because you can't learn the lesson that the universe and the God is trying to teach you. So there is like a good aspect and the bad aspect of this, which I think is important to note as well.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because it's true that one of the negative aspects is when we start to be arrogant, think that we know, when in reality I think we don't really know anything. We don't really know even the things that we consider as kind of universal truths. Who knows, maybe in a few years time it will be completely different. Many years ago people thought the earth was flat, and that was a truth for years and years, and then somebody came and then said, oh, actually it's not flat. And who knows like so we don't really know. Science nobody really knows. That's why it's important to follow your truth. And I think another negative aspect, as I was talking about the pressure from people, when you are starting a new something new, that can trigger into other people the fact that they think, oh, if you are starting, it's like they're triggering kind of jealousies and stuff in other people, but because it's like they feel that because somebody's doing something, it's like they are not doing, it's looking bad on them because they are not doing it, and that will trigger this kind of jealousy and stuff, and they will try again to push against rather than being open in some way. And I think it's good to reflect on this when it's possible. Of course, it's not always possible, but to reflect and understand when is the case that you are actually not no, you're not really bringing forward what you really believe into, what you really would like to, any kind of wish you think like, oh, that's something I really wanted to do. Why not? Why you don't do it? What is it stopping you?
Yeah, exactly.
I think in deeply inside, we always know what should be and what shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's quite difficult when we have so many people and so many opinions, and opinions that are considered facts actually all around us. And sometimes we might know something deep down, but the whole world has a different, you know, idea on things. So it is tough, but I think it's a place where, you know, we might actually know nothing, but it's a place where sort of anything is possible in a way, and we have to be willing to kind of go and grab that. But I think the idea of being humble to the point where it doesn't matter how many books we read, how much information we gain, we might at the end actually be wrong. And someone that has a completely different opinion to us as well can actually tell us something we don't know, even if it's just like an aspect about how others view the world, if you know what I mean, without it necessarily being a fact or something to know. But it's just like there is always information all around us, and it's not that it's all factual, because I believe the truth is only one. There is just truth, and there are many opinions and aspects of it, and we have to be willing to, you know, assess and look around and see what is what. And
I think a lot has to do as well with what we believe is our truth, because we don't really know and nobody really knows. And it makes me think of, you know, when there is like a 6 shape on the floor, and if I look from my perspective, it's a 6, but if you look on your perspective, it's a 9. And it is a truth in some way, because on your perspective, it is a 9, and you keep telling me, no, it's not a 6. And on my perspective, it is a 6, and it's not a 9. So, and in reality, is a truth that is maybe a truth for me, but it's not a truth for somebody else. So
yeah, it's like you said in the beginning, how we're like the filters for the inside, and because of our uniqueness, everyone is going to experience and act out the truth in their own unique way. So it's not that necessarily there's just this one way that everyone has to be. It's just that one kind of, I don't even know what to call it, this one truth, but it is just expressed in this infinite amount of ways, and everyone has a unique take on it. And I think it's quite sad to see in the world where, you know, this kind of idea of sameness, that we're all the same, you know, this kind of narrative is quite, I would say, disappointing, because there is so much uniqueness in the world, but we actually have to actively pursue it, because if we don't, we will become like a mass of sameness, and that's not what living is about, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Me too. It's about showing and being yourself. That means being unique. And that's the whole thing, being unique. And what you see as a truth, what's the matter if it's your truth and that works for you? Because I think that's the way that maybe some inventors created what they created, because they saw something that nobody else could see, because it was their truth. It's what they could channel, and they could see, and they could understand, and they could feel, or that kind of instinct, I don't know if we can call it, whatever it is, that make you see things in a way, or realize things that might be true, might not be true, but they work for who I am. And that can guide you and lead you to maybe get to something that actually brings growth for other people too, not just for you.
Yeah, I think it also depends where that idea actually comes from, because I think a lot of people, they might not necessarily be channeling the real thing, and therefore their idea of truth might actually be a kind of lie in a way. So again, it's just this like polar opposite to the concepts that we talk about, where we think we're channeling something unique, but really it's something that has been told to us over and over again. In a way, it could actually be, you know, an example of brainwashing.
But
and people believe it's true, and it might actually not be. So I think it's really important for everyone to be constantly questioning what we think our truth is and why we think that it's true.
Because I think truth is truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think nobody really can ever know the truth of anything because that's too pure, too I think it's too perfect for an
Yeah,
imperfect world, the way we live. So
absolutely.
we can never really, and in that sense, I do see more as a Socrates and Plato, see this kind of thing. And truths are more about, that's why I'm saying there's more related to who we are. So when we're really, really connected to that uniqueness, to who we are, and then in that case, we are really channeling something new. And normally we know because it's more than often quite different to what the majority
Yeah,
thinks and
absolutely.
believes. So that for me is the kind of idea of getting closer to the truth. I don't think
Yeah,
we
what
can ever get close to the truth, but kind of getting closer is when we actually work with our own being and who we are. And the more we can do that, and the more we can connect with us and with our own self and our again uniqueness and feelings and everything, the more we can channel certain things and the more we can see what is our truth.
yeah,
And it's really
absolutely.
about our truth, not
Yeah. And I think the key word is like connection, real connection, and connecting to yourself rather than allowing other people to kind of mold your perception about yourself,
yes,
especially.
yes,
So the, know thyself is so important, therefore, because it highlights the fact that we really don't know a lot about ourselves, and therefore we have to learn. And I think, again, this represents, the journey of the Fool, and it's a journey of self-realization and connection with one's own soul, and really going back to that inner core of who and what we really are.
yes. And again, I always think of children because they are a bit more less they are less um influenced by society and people in some way, although they look for those kind of pillars in some way for them to learn how to adapt to the environment, like how parents behave and feelings and stuff. But they are more their own selves, especially when they are young, up to like 3 years old. They are very self-centered. So that's why they have this willpower and they want something, they just get, they don't care about what the parent says. Like the parent says no, and you're like, and then you try the more to get what you need to get because that's what your instinct is telling you. That's what you need. That's what you need. Go and get it. Go and get it. And like, who's this person that's stopping me? I need that because I know I need that. So, and then we lose this when we grow up. And it's good that we have to understand and become more aware, but we will never really be aware of everything, and or we will not really never understand everything. So the more we just follow our own thing, and again, as you were saying, do your own research, do listen to other people, because the truths of every individual person helps you to then find your truth. It's not that the truth of other
The
people or the
picture as
science
well.
or whatever doesn't count. No, of course it does, but it will help their work of different people will help you to then create your own understanding and idea and go through certain things and be more connected and do all these. And in that way, when you're really connected with yourself, is when I think you can really conceive.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. When you're really connected, you can conceive. And when you can conceive, they still not starting the journey, but it's kind of the pre-beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
It's just there, and then you can work on it and you can start to grow.
It's the seed,
Yes.
that's within us.
Like a
And then, the seed is there in the beginning, before the actual beginning. You would say the beginning is actually when the seed is starting to sprout and things are actually going on, but the seed is there. And yeah, I think even just the image, when we think of a seed, it's deep in the ground, and it's like this unknown. It's really dark and cold and scary, and you know, it's only when it's like the first beginnings, the seed has to sprout, and then it goes towards the light out of the ground, and later on it will blossom into something. But the very beginning is very dark, and there's a lot of anxiety around it, and we have to be willing to be comfortable and open to it, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I love this. I love what you just actually, I really love it. So because I know that when we thought of this new podcast and talk about trying to give some insights and have these conversations that can help us in some way, we went to look for the visions meaning, the etymological meaning of vision.
Oh yeah.
And it actually means, from Latin, it means that you can, it's like the act of seeing. That's the vision meaning. The act of seeing. And I really like it because it's like seeing in terms of becoming aware, like when you can open your eyes and see something. And on this respect, today we were talking about the conceptions of the Fool. I think it would be nice to give a kind of final kind of summary idea of the insight, the final insights.
Final insights.
Yeah, and in some ways, like it's like because it's like kind of trying to see something. It's like when you kind of take off your blindfold. So I would say, why don't we now take down our blindfold and give some insight? So what would be the good and the bad about
what we were just talking about the conceptions of the Fool?
So what is that? Maybe we can say first the bad things that we need to be aware of, and then we can good things.
End on a positive note.
Yes.
Why not? Okay. So I think the bad things is to, you know, kind of always be aware that the world can be a dangerous place. It is uncertain in many ways, and we can't be naive and arrogant and stupid. We do have to be humble, in a sense, to not make stupid mistakes. So I think
to be the opposite of the Fool, like the Fool in terms of this fresh, enthusiastic, open to risk person that is just so connected with its own self that whatever is conceiving would be considered a fool thing to do. And that's why seen by others as a fool, because it's quite different to what people normally do. He goes against almost. He's actually outside of the comfort zone, as you were saying, the unknown, and be wary of not considering too much as well the pressure of people in their ideas, and have the courage to do that. And
have the courage to follow your soul and your uniqueness and really embrace that.
And as you were saying, that beautiful idea, I really loved it, of the seed under the ground. Yeah, just be, who cares? Be that little seed under the ground. They started to come out and grow, and I'm sure that it will be a beautiful blossom, whatever will be, a fruit, a vegetable, whatever. People will be like, wow, this is amazing. Take the fruits of your hard work.
Yeah.
And you take it as well, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could be, I think, a good way of ending this.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great way to end our episode 0.
Yeah. And we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, 100%.